This is a sports catastrophe production. This is Michael Schumacher, one of the greatest F1 drivers of all time, and a January 3rd baby. That's why he's the birthday boy for Sports Catastrophe on January the 3rd. He's also a cunt to most people's eyes. Not a lot of people think he's great and all that. Mostly because of Ferrari being the team everyone wants to hate and all that. Despite his 7 world titles, which are now tied for the most in history, Michael Schumacher is a guy who I hate it, mostly because I hate Ferrari with a passion. He is a good driver, but sometimes his willingness to win ruins his great career. This is a look at Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher today turns 52. He was born January 3rd, 1969. He competed not just for Ferrari, he actually competed for Jordan, Benetton, and Mercedes. Mercedes, I can't remember if he Mercedes. Anyway, he has 7 World Drivers' Championship titles. And in 2012, when he retired, he had the most wins, pole positions, and podium finish. All of them have been broken by Lewis Hamilton. But he still has the most races won in a single season, 13, which is hard to believe. It's hard to even get to 10. Now I'm gonna take a look at the most wins in one year. Only 10 times has someone won 10 races or more in a year. Schumi and Vettel have 13 wins in a year. Schumacher only raced 18 times, whereas Vettel only raced 19 times. Lewis Hamilton got 11 wins in a season 4 times: 2014, 2018, 2019, and 2020. Wow. Can't believe it. The past 3 years, he's won 11 races each. The more you know. Schumi also got 11 wins in 1 year in 2002, and Sebastian Vettel with 11 in 2011. Hamilton had a couple of 10-win seasons in 15 and 16. So Lewis Hamilton, 5 of the last 6 years have won double-digit races? Jeez. I never would have guessed. Shows how much I know. Anyway, Schumi's 13-win season in 2004 is the second highest in percentages of wins in a season, as Alberto Ascari in 1952 got 6 wins in 8 races. But in a season, Schumi's number 2. Hamilton is now tied with a 64.7. That's actually 7th in history. Jim Clark of England, if you must know, took 3rd place. Oh no, he's not England, Scotland. Jim Clark was Scottish. Most consecutive wins. Sebastian Vettel had 9 consecutive wins. Schumi in 2004 had 7 straight. European, Canadian, US, French, British, German, Hungarian. So that's amazing how Vettel had 9 straight. What the heck? So yeah, so this is like amazing. He set a lot of records and all that. He was a kart racing superstar. He actually raced for Jordan in the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix, and then Benetton decided to sign him for the rest of the 91 season. And he won back-to-back drivers' titles in 94 and 95, ahead of Damon Hill both times. Schumi went to Ferrari in 96 and won 5 straight titles from 2000 to 2004. After finishing runner-up to Fernando Alonso in 05 and 06, Schumi decided to retire from the sport, but he actually came with Mercedes from 2010 to 2012. Didn't know that. I know Bill will know this. Anyway, Schumacher unfortunately had a lot of racing incidents. Twice he was involved in collisions in the final race of the season that decided to retire. First with Damon Hill in the 94 Australian Grand Prix and Jacques Villeneuve in the 97 European Grand Prix. Schumi and his younger brother Rolf are the only siblings to win races in Formula One, and the first siblings to finish first and second in the same race. They did that 4 times. It's him and Terrian, by the way. So basically, yeah, his Formula One career happened. And all that. Basically, Schumacher has done pretty well for himself. Schumi's best thing about himself was that he won 17 of 30 races in wet conditions that he raced in. Basically, he was the driving champion. But Schumacher also had the nickname of the Red Baron because of his red Ferrari in reference to the German Manfred von Richthofen, the flying ace of World War One, which Canadian Billy Bishop got down. Boom. So anyway, Schumi actually popularized Formula One in Germany, which was a French sport. When Schumacher retired in '06, 3 of the top 10 drivers were German. Younger German drivers such as Vettel felt Schumi was instrumental in why he became an F1 driver. So his first race was with the Jordan Ford team as a replace for the imprisoned Bertrand Gachot. He was actually a Mercedes driver. He was contracted to Mercedes. Wow, I did not know that. So anyway, Schumi did pretty well for himself. He qualified 7th. That was amazing and all that. Unfortunately, Schumi would end up retiring because of clutch problems. However, Schumacher was engaged by Benetton Ford for the following race, and the Jordan team didn't want that to happen, but they couldn't sign. They didn't sign a final contract, so that's why Benetton got Schumi. Schumi actually finished 5th in his second career race, the Italian Grand Prix, and he even finished ahead of his teammate Nelson Piquet, who's a 3-time world champion himself. Sauber tried to invoke a clause in Schumi's contract that if Mercedes entered F1, Schumi would have to drive for them. But Schumi decided to stay with Benetton. Even though that the Williams team of Nigel Mansell and Riccardo Patrese was dominating, Schumacher did well. His first podium was 3rd place in the Mexican Grand Prix in '92. He would actually win the Belgian Grand Prix in '92 in a wet race, which he was dominant in. He actually ended up 3rd in the Drivers' Championship behind Mansell and Patrese. Amazing. In '93, Williams' team did well again, although they changed it, with Mansell going to IndyCar and Patrese, I guess, retiring or something. Damon Hill and Alain Prost were good for Williams. I keep thinking Alain Prost is Ferrari, but anyway. Benetton changed their stuff. Schumi won 1 race, the Portuguese Grand Prix, and got 9 podium finishes. Sadly, though, that high would be driven by the low of the fact he ended up retiring in 7 of 15 races. He did finish 4th in the Drivers' Championship. But then '94, he changed everything. Sadly, though, the '94 season was affected by the deaths of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger. So basically, it was huge and all that. The final race, he had a few controversial moments before the season finale in Australia, which meant Damon Hill closed the points gap. Schumi only had a 1-point lead. On lap 36, Schumi hit the guardrail on the outside of the track when he was leading. Hill tried to pass because he knew that if he just beat Schumacher by position, he would win. Unfortunately, though, Schumacher's car returned to the track and there was a collision, causing them both to retire. Schumacher was given the title, very controversially. All that. But Schumacher dedicated his title to Ayrton Senna. What's even more huge is that, Schumacher ended up winning the '94 San Marino Grand Prix, the same one that claimed Ayrton Senna's life. In '95, he defended his title and beat Damon Hill by a lot more points, 33 points. He gave Benetton its first Constructors' Championship alongside Mr. Johnny Herbert. And then Ferrari decided to go after Schumi. After all, they hadn't won a Drivers' Championship since 1979 and no Constructors' title since '83, which was hard to believe in Ferrari circles. For $60 million over 2 years. So anyway, Ferrari came close a couple of times, but there were a lot of problems. So basically, it was huge. Schumi ends up Schumi ended up third place in the drivers' championship in '96 and got Ferrari to second place in the constructors. He won 3 races, but he didn't finish sixth of the 16 races. His first Ferrari win was at the Spanish Grand Prix in the wet. Yes. Schumacher would have a battle royale with Jacques Villeneuve, our boy from Canada, in '97. Villeneuve looked good, but by mid-season, Schumi took the championship lead, winning 5 races and had a 1-point advantage. So basically, Villeneuve had to do better than Schumacher to get the title. Towards the end of the race at Jerez, well, the final Grand Prix being the European Grand Prix, Schumacher had a coolant leak and lost performance, meaning he might not finish the race. As Villeneuve attempted to pass Schumi needed to provoke an accident, but got the short end of the stick, retiring from the race. Basically, the commentators said that Schumi hit Villeneuve on the wrong side, which meant that Villeneuve could move on. Villeneuve actually ended up taking third place in that race. Mika Hakkinen ended up winning the race, if memory serves me right. Schumacher was actually punished for his unsportsmanlike conduct by being fined, and worse for Schumi is that he was disqualified from the Drivers' Championship, meaning that his second place would not happen. And then Mika Hakkinen became Schumi's title competition in '98, as Jacques Villeneuve had one of the worst defending Drivers' Championship years of all time. But Schumi had a problem. All that. So anyway, Hakkinen did end up winning the World Championship by winning the last few races over Schumi. However, Schumi did give Ferrari the constructors' titles in '99. And unfortunately, the British Grand Prix was his undoing to win the Drivers' Championship. He ended up having his car's rear brake fail and sending him off the track with a broken leg. Mika Salo of Finland had to replace him during his 3+ month absence. Hakkinen ended up winning another World Championship. All that. Schumi became a teammate after his return from his injury and tried to help Eddie Irvine from Northern Ireland win the Drivers' Championship for Ferrari. Sadly, though, it failed and Hakkinen won. However, Schumacher from 2002-2004 was just dominant. He beat Hakkinen for his world title, his third world title, and first with Ferrari in 2000, which was amazing. Schumacher famously broke into tears at the post-race press conference of the Italian Grand Prix in 2000 because he tied the number of wins by Ayrton Senna. The championship fight would come down to the Japan Grand Prix and all that. Schumacher won the race and the championship, though. And then in 2001, he won. It was amazing. Schumacher had 9 wins in 2001 and clinched the World Championship with 4 races yet to run. This was amazing. His season highlights include being second to his brother Rolf at the Canadian Grand Prix and the Belgian Grand Prix when Schumacher broke Alain Prost's record for wins. 2002, he was fantastic. Unfortunately, though, Schumi was in another controversy that year because he basically was told he had to pass, with Rubens Barrichello winning the Austrian Grand Prix. Ferrari team orders told Rubens to slow down and let Schumi win. And everyone was angry at that. At the US Grand Prix, he basically dominated and was in a close finish with Barrichello, but basically he slowed down to create a formation finish with Barrichello and got Barrichello the victory. He did win the Drivers' Championship, which tied Juan Manuel Fanigel's record of 5 titles. Ferrari won 15 of 17 races. Boy, oh boy. And Schumacher won the title with 6 races left, which is still the record for earliest point in a season for a driver to be world champion. Schumacher won 11 times, breaking the F1 record, and beat his runner-up in the Drivers' Championship, which was his teammate Barrichello, by 67 points. And then Schumacher won the 2003 season. However, it was closely contested. Raikkonen was basically the new Finnish prowess and basically was trying to win it for his country and his team. Sadly, though, there were a lot of problems. And one Pablo Montoya, yes, him of NASCAR fame, if you will, what was closing in on Schumacher alongside Raikkonen. So basically, the FIA decided to change ways to the way tire whiffs are measured. So basically, thanks to that, Schumacher did fantastic. Schumacher just needed 1 point at the final race to win the title, and he did, beating Raikkonen by 2 points. Schumacher won 12 of the first 13 races in 2004. And the only race he didn't win, he didn't finish. It was in Monaco when he crashed into Juan Pablo Montoya. He clinched the 7th world title at the Belgian Grand Prix and was 34 points ahead of the runner-up, Rubens Barrichello. Unfortunately, rule changes for the 2005 season said that tires had to last an entire race. Kind of pathetic, if you ask me. Oh, that. And of course, as everyone knows, that would be huge because Schumacher would win the controversial 2005 U.S. Grand Prix in which there was tire issues and all that, and chicanes and all that. All the Michelin drivers, the drivers who have Michelin tires, pulled out of that race, and the 6 Bridgestone tire people won, and obviously Schumacher would win. However, he ended up 3rd in the season, and Fernando Alonso from España won the title. Schumi basically would finish his Ferrari career in 2006. He did okay. Unfortunately, though, he had a lot of issues. The final, well, basically Schumacher was chasing Fernando Alonso for the title. And unfortunately, Schumacher couldn't do it. Alonso had to score at least 1 point, and Schumacher couldn't do it, as Alonso scored a few points and won the championship. So basically, Schumacher tried his best, but he failed. And then basically, he decided to retire at the end of the 2006 season. It was shocking. I'm like, really? He could have lasted a few more years? He was made a Ferrari helper. And then for some reason, he decided to come back to Mercedes. Come back to F1 with Mercedes. He will be alongside fellow German Nico Rosberg, the new Mercedes team. It was amazing. And this is before Lewis Hamilton became part of Mercedes. But anyway, yeah. It was amazing. He signed a 3-year contract worth 20 million British pounds. Schumacher's surprise return to F1 was compared to Niki Lauda's in 1982 and at the age of 33, and Nigel Mansell's in 94 when he was 41 years old. So anyway, he finished his first Mercedes race. He was 6th in Bahrain and all that. A lot of people said he was past it. He ended up finishing the World Drivers' Championship 9th with 72 points. However, it was the first time since his debut in 1981 that he finished without a win, pole position, podium, or fastest lap. So basically, he didn't get any of them. He actually scored points in 2011. At the Canadian Grand Prix, he ended up being 4th in that famous wet race that took like 5 hours or something like that. Schumacher led 3 laps during the Japanese Grand Prix. It was the oldest driver to lead a race since Jack Bravo in 1970. Schumi would finish 8th in the Drivers' Championship. So basically, he actually got a 3rd place podium at the European Grand Prix in 2012 and was the oldest driver since Jack Brabham in 1970 to be on the podium. Schumacher couldn't decide about his F1 plans, so he was replaced by Lewis Hamilton, something that was big for Mercedes and all that. He had a 21-year F1 career, including his time as advisor for Ferrari. He had a lot of honors and all that. 94, 97, of course. All that. The FIA decided to disqualify Michael Schumacher from the 97 season for his recklessness at the European Grand Prix, trying to get out Villeneuve. And that was the only time that's ever happened before. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, it's a very dangerous driving. All that. Yeah. So he got a lot of things and all that. Schumacher and his wife actually have 2 kids, Gina Marie and Mick. Mick Schumacher is going to be part of the 2021 F1 season. It'll be amazing to see what his son can do in F1 after his dad. So yeah, so he's a ambassador to UNESCO. Boy. So yeah, a lot of things. Unfortunately, though, Schumacher's health problems were huge because in 2013 he suffered a massive skiing accident while crossing an unsecure area in the French Alps near Belt. He hit his head on a rock, having a head injury despite wearing a ski helmet. If it wasn't for that helmet, he would have died. He had 2 surgical interventions and had traumatic brain injuries. All that. Unfortunately, he's been confined to a bed for 6 years, so he has muscle atrophy and osteoporosis. So basically, Schumacher is not in the best health, but he's still alive. So good for him. So anyway, that's the story of one Michael Schumacher. A guy that basically loved to be hated, if you will. Not just because he was German, but because of his Ferrari indications. I don't care what people say. I don't like Ferrari. I never will. Never have. So that's a bold statement from me. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I do.